But one of the things that I will look at in this game, and I know we were all doing it throughout, and we haven't even really gotten into it too much, but this was an epic fail of a game for Jalen Hurts. I mean, it really was. And I'm a guy, we've all been rooting for the guy all season long, and we hope he's the guy for the foreseeable future. But if you're evaluating a quarterback right now, if you're Howie Roseman, if you're Jeffrey Lurie, and I know people go, oh, the owner shouldn't be evaluating. Well, he's the owner, so he kind of gets to. If you're even Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts himself, a self-evaluation, this isn't a game that you want to watch too many times as something you're going to take notes out of from like a positive standpoint. This was a low light reel, if you will, for Jalen Hurts. And just like that, the Eagles season comes to a close with a 31-15 loss at the hands of Tom Brady, Bruce Arians, Todd Bowles, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Welcome to the JAKIB Media Postgame Show with myself, Marc Farzetta, DGunn, Devan Caney. Welcome in on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel as well as 6abc.com. We are presented exclusively by the great people of Ocean Casino Resort. Get your tickets right now for Tracy Morgan live on stage July 16th at Ovation Hall at Ocean Casino. Book it now and go for the live shows. Go for the win. Unfortunately, the Eagles did not really go for the win today. An abysmal, embarrassing performance as the cliche rings about somebody maybe playing chess and somebody else maybe playing checkers, maybe the varsity versus the freshman. That's kind of what this game felt like in the early goings and kind of dragged on into the third quarter before the Eagles got some garbage time points, Gunner, in this game. But I thought, Devan, throughout this game, Eagles outclassed, outmanned, outcoached, outplayed, did not even look like they belonged on the same football field as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. A very, extremely disappointing end to this Eagles season.
Did you honestly think the Eagles were going to win this game?
Don't care about it, whether or not they were going to win. I did not expect them to win. I expected them to show up. They didn't even show up.
No, they showed up, but what you saw was a classic case of a veteran team, a veteran coaching staff playing a team with inexperience and inexperienced coaching staff in a lot of ways. Okay, so you're not on. People going into this game kept talking about how you're playing Tom Brady. No, you were playing Bruce Arians. You were playing Todd Bowles. You were playing Byron Leftwich. You're basically playing three head coaches and probably the greatest quarterback of all time compared to a young developing quarterback, a first-time head coach, and two coordinators who were learning on the job. And when they compiled this 9-8 records, we did make light of it because we kept saying, hey, look, they won those games they were supposed to win. We'd be trashing them had they lost to the Jets, to the Giants, to Washington. They won those games. It's all a part of the learning process. They were outmanned. They were outmaneuvered every step of the way. When the coin toss came, I'm sitting there thinking, if the Eagles win the coin toss, please take the ball. Do not defer until the second half. Lo and behold, they win the coin toss. They give the ball right out of the gate to Tom Brady. And what does he do? Go down the field in 12 plays in 5 minutes and put 7 in the end zone. And that completely alters what you want to do, because even though you have the first 15 plays scripted, you've got to deviate from the norm a little bit because you know who you're playing and where you're playing. And then all of a sudden it's 14-0. It's 17-0. It's 31-0. You know, what are you going to do at that point? You have to abandon what got you this far. You know, first of all, kudos to the Eagles for just getting into the playoffs. And if you remember, I said no matter what happens, this is valuable experience for a lot of people in that Eagles organization, from coaches to players, in terms of how to make that transition from the preseason to the regular season. And the postseason is a much different beast compared to the regular season. And lo and behold, the Eagles' inexperience in all phases you could imagine showed in this particular game against the defending Super Bowl champions. I didn't think the Eagles would fall behind 31-0. I thought the game would be a little bit more competitive than that. There we go. A little bit more competitive than that. Mm-hmm. But the bottom line is they're going to lick their wounds. There'll be players that won't be back, i.e., hopefully Jalen Reagor, Derek Barnett, just to name a few.
Oof.
And Jalen Hurts has a lot of work. Jalen Hurts missed way too many receivers today in the passing game. But Todd Bowles called the exact game I thought he was going to call. He's going to blitz. He's going to blitz again, and he's going to keep blitzing. And even though he didn't get to Jalen Hurts 5, 6, 7 times, he made Jalen Hurts do some things he didn't want to do. And that was a huge difference in this game.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was, we didn't go into this game. I was a realist about it. I didn't think the Eagles were going to win. Honestly, if they won, I don't know. Philly might have burned down in a good way. Like that would have been insane. I just didn't want them to embarrass us, and they did embarrass us. And shout out to DGunn, because once again, in the first half, I'm texting him, like, what's going on? This is terrible. I'm not having a good time right now. And DGunn, like, you were pretty positive. He's like, we know how this team is played in the first half, and we discussed that. And Marc, I know your thoughts on them not playing their starters against the Cowboys, and that kind of probably helping them out in terms of starting slow. And this game, I don't even know if it was a slow start because it never picked up. It never got faster. So yeah, they were out coached. They were playing against the GOAT, Tom Brady, the defending Super Bowl champions, and they were outmatched, but I think they could have made it a much more even and competitive game had not just Jalen Hurts, because yes, he didn't play well, and I'm already seeing the comments, and I'm already dreading the ensuing quarterback discussion that's going to go on probably until August, until next season starts, and probably through next season. But no one was good. Jalen Reagor, Jalen Hurts, no one was playing well. I think there are a few bright spots that we can get into later. I feel like no one really wants the positivity right now. Maybe at the end of the show, I'll talk about that.
Closing arguments.
Right. But for my opening statement, all I wanted was to not be embarrassed, and the Eagles really embarrassed me. So
see, that's the thing. Look, we all said at the end of last week, okay, the things change when you get into the playoffs, and I not one of us when we went around it and talked about possibly playing the Buccaneers and all that. Not one of us said, "Oh, well, the Eagles got that game." Like there was nobody looking at this game with Disney-colored glasses or rose-colored glasses. Everyone kind of expected to see the Eagles lose this game. I did not, Gunnar, to your point, did not expect 31-0. I didn't expect Todd Bowles and Bruce Arians to be toying with this coaching staff and their play calling as much and as well as they were in the first quarter of this game in particular. And I point to one play where I thought, we're in for a long day. And the Eagles ran on a 3rd and 2. They ran a read option. I believe it was with Miles Sanders and, of course, Jalen Hurts. And Jalen Hurts held the ball in the mesh point for about 2 seconds, which is about a second and a half longer than it's supposed to be, because he was reading the end and he was also reading the linebacker coming up, rushing the quarterback, rushing the play, trying to make a stop. And both were covered. They ended up taking a big loss on the play. They didn't end up converting, obviously, and ended up putting the ball away. And I think that was right before Sitboss had his first shank of the day, because he had another terrible game. But that was a play that I looked at and just said, they're just toying with the Eagles. They know their playbook inside of that already. And it was very obvious what they were doing from Jump Street. They stacked the box. 8 men were in there constantly, sometimes 9. Eagles played into that at some points, having 2 tight ends, both in bunch coverage, coming at the line of scrimmage, standing at the line of scrimmage when they were starting off their play, which only played into what the Bucs wanted them to do to begin with. And the Bucs consistently said, go ahead and beat us with Jalen Hurts. We double dog dare you to beat us with Jalen Hurts throwing the football, because you weren't going to win with that many men in the box against Miles Sanders or Boston Scott or Kenny Gainwell or anybody, or even Jalen Hurts going up there with read option plays or even design runs for the quarterback. They were making you throw the ball, and the Eagles played right into those hands, making every throw from Jalen Hurts, if he did throw the football, to be within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, and then simply running out of the backfield. When I watched that happen, it was the chess and not checkers, varsity versus freshman, outmanned, whatever you want to call it, the puppeteer, the marionette. That's what it felt like when I was watching Todd Bowles attack Nick Sirianni's offense. And Gunnar, when you said earlier that you're basically going up against 3 head coaches when you're facing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers coaching staff, it got me thinking a little bit here. And this crept into my brain a little bit during the game. We might be looking back on this game, and Nick Sirianni might be the fourth best head coach going into next year that was coaching in this game, because Jonathan Gannon's defense actually played an okay game. They were actually all right going up against the best ever in Tom Brady, going up against the Bruce Arians offense, that, yes, was down a lot of players, but still the guys that they had out there are still some pretty dominant players, especially when you talk about Mike Evans or Rob Gronkowski and Tom Brady himself. I look at Jonathan Gannon as a guy that might be getting a head coaching job next year, and if he's actually a better head coach than he is a defensive coordinator, which shouldn't be that hard, then you're looking at Nick Sirianni as a guy that might be the fourth best head coach that was involved in this game today.
The Eagles defense played well once it settled in, but by then it was already 14-0. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it took.
I can take a 14-0 lead in the first quarter against Tom Brady. Yeah, sure.
Okay, it took him a little while. I said on a couple of other. I said on 97.5 earlier today. All this scuttlebutt about Jonathan Gannon being considered for head coaching jobs. If somebody would hire Jonathan Gannon based on his performance in 2021, that GM would probably get fired real quick. Now, Jonathan Gannon, I don't think is a head coach right now. And that's not a knock against Jonathan Gannon. That's what I would consider an accurate assessment. I need to see a better body of work from Jonathan Gannon, meaning now that the Eagles have all this cap space, Howie Roseman, we've talked about how he does a better job of bringing in free agents more so than he does drafting. So with all this cap space now, fix some of the pieces on defense. Maybe use 2 or 3 of those draft picks to add to the defense to make it younger and stronger. Then I want to see what Jonathan Gannon does with a better complement of defensive players in 2022. If he improves significantly, okay, then let's realistically talk about Jonathan Gannon possibly being a head coach. But I don't think anybody will hire Jonathan Gannon right now as a head coach in the National Football League. That would be committing professional suicide right now based on what we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
John McMullen, I'm curious to get his thoughts on that because we know he's a big fan of Jonathan Gannon, and I've asked him about the head coaching interviews he's taking, and a lot of people seem to think that Gannon will get a head coaching job maybe in Minnesota. I don't know. Honestly, I would personally be, I don't want to say ecstatic, but if he left, I'd be like, okay, that's fine. No, but I think today's game was the opposite of what I at least expected it to be. Going into it, I was not that worried about our offense. I said if we, capitalize on the run, we could hold our own offensively. I was so worried about defense, and it kind of flipped because I believe we got to Tom Brady at least 4 times. And I was not expecting that whatsoever. I would have liked to see, more picks and not 5 picks for us in Jalen Hurts. But I still don't think that makes me a fan or want to hold on to Jonathan Gannon. He didn't do it for me this season. The passive defense just isn't working for me. So, And I agree with you. I think we should get young defensive talent.
I think everyone's on that page. Like if the Eagles do walk away with 3 first-round picks, in terms of walking away with actually selecting 3 players in the first round, I think we all want them to be defensive players. I still doubt that the Eagles actually make 3 selections in the first round. I still think they trade back. But one of the things that I will look at in this game, and I know we were all doing it throughout, and we haven't even really gotten into it too much, but this was an epic fail of a game for Jalen Hurts. I mean, it really was. And I'm a guy, we've all been rooting for the guy all season long, and we hope he's the guy for the foreseeable future. But if you're evaluating a quarterback right now, if you're Howie Roseman, if you're Jeffrey Lurie, and I know people go, oh, the owner shouldn't be evaluating. Well, he's the owner, so he kind of gets to. If you're even Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts himself, a self-evaluation, this isn't a game that you want to watch too many times as something you're going to take notes out of from like a positive standpoint. This was a low-light reel, if you will, for Jalen Hurts. And it wasn't even just the interceptions. It was missed targets. And I know the people that are quarterback coddlers will point to a Dallas Goedert drop, a Jason Kelsey holding penalty that was an awful call, but still a call nonetheless. You'll look throughout this game and you look at Jalen Hurts and try to defend him. I don't see really how you can. This was a awful game by Jalen Hurts. I can say that and still look at the future and go, you know what? I don't know about this draft either. I don't know if I want the Eagles using a first-round pick to go get any of these quarterbacks that will be available in the draft. Hey, you want to bring in Aaron Rodgers? He wants to play here? Sure, let's make it happen. Let's see if that really comes to fruition. Russell Wilson says he wants to weigh his options. Okay, let's be patient on that one. Deshaun Watson, whatever it might be in free agency or trade. I still look at this free agency class as the actual number one threat to Jalen Hurts actually not being the starting quarterback next year. This was not a step forward for him at all. He had been taking steps forward throughout the entire season, but this game, this was a giant step backwards for Jalen Hurts. This was the worst game we have seen him play by far, in the biggest stage, no doubt, maybe since that Giants game.
Well, you have to take into consideration who he was playing.
Sure, of course.
You got to take into consideration, number one, he had never been in a playoff scenario. Neither had a lot of the guys on that team. And lo and behold, We talked about how Tampa Bay was a banged up team, but all of a sudden they get Levante David back. They get Shaq Barrett back. Jason Pierre-Paul comes back and plays with a torn rotator cuff. But I think the biggest amount of disrespect was Tampa Bay came out and stacked the line of scrimmage and dared you to try to be. They told you, you're not running the football on us. I thought one of the more telling tales during the broadcast was when Trankman mentioned that Todd Bowles had told him during the week that we're not afraid of the Eagles' run game. And sure enough, now a lot of people were saying, and I said it earlier today, the Eagles had a great measure of success against the number 1, the number 5, and the number 6 run defenses in the National Football League. Tampa Bay's run defense was number 3, but it's a much different problem with Tampa Bay's defense because of the scheme that Todd Bowles plays. And sure enough, a smart quarterback and a smart coaching staff would have said, wait a minute, you're going to stack the line of scrimmage against me and disrespect me like that? Okay, we're going to throw the ball. We're going to catch them in isolated coverage, and we're going to throw the ball on them and loosen them up early. Nick Sirianni didn't do it. He kept trying to run the football. You know what? You got 8 men stacked in the box. You got to trust these wide receivers. They can wiggle free, or you're tied in. And he didn't do it. And a few times they tried to do it, Jalen Hurts overthrew him. So Jalen Hurts, he felt that pressure from the Tampa Bay defense. He knew it was coming, and he failed. He failed to execute in a lot of ways. But this team failed to execute. When they did get big plays and long drives, all of a sudden, a holding penalty negated that play. And then Jalen Hurts on one play saw a ghost, Devontae Smith, and he thought he was wide open in the end zone, which he was, but he held the ball about 2 seconds too long. Safety comes over, makes a great interception on the play. This is all part of the learning process. You got to learn. You got to grow. We talk about you have to learn how to win at various stages of this game before you actually win. Now, this team learned how to bounce back and win games they were supposed to win to put themselves in a playoff position. Now, Nick Sirianni and the coaching staff and the players have seen what happens when you play much better competition in a post-game environment. Because Tampa Bay, right now, still king of the hill until somebody knocks them off that pedestal, and they played like it today.
Yeah, I mean, I think a theme that we've talked about all season long on this show is how impressed we are with Jalen Hurts' mentality and how he rarely seems to get rattled. He seemed overwhelmed today. He definitely seemed overwhelmed. And yeah, he played terribly. And like I mentioned, Marc, you say we all are in agreement that the Eagles need to draft young defensive talent. And while that's true, I'm also, thinking that now I'm even seeing people in the comments right now saying that we need to draft a quarterback. I don't know if I fully agree with that. I think that if anything, this was a good experience for Jalen Hurts, but he was not on it today. But he also didn't get any help. Like even our O-line, that's been incredible, not just with the penalties. It seemed like he was throwing late. He was inaccurate. He was seeing ghosts. He was throwing picks, and it was just messy. But I do think it was a whole team effort in terms of being pretty terrible all around.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. Like, I look at this game and I don't look at one person and go, oh, if this guy wasn't terrible today, the Eagles would have won. It was a whole wide variety, but Jalen Hurts is the quarterback. He does play the most important position in all of sports, especially in the city of Philadelphia, quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles. And this bottom line, yes, who he was playing against and Todd Bowles and what they were able to do against the Kansas City Chiefs a year ago in the Super Bowl. Okay, the 23-year-old quarterback making his first playoff start, just got through his first year of being a starting quarterback in the NFL. All that you take into consideration in time, and you say to yourself, how good is this guy? How good will he be? Try to project his future. I hope the Eagles give him another year. I would still take Jalen Hurts for another year. And that goes, and I'm not going to let one game dictate otherwise. I'm going to evaluate his entire year and watch the progression that he had throughout the season. But even with that being said, both things can be true. You can look at Jalen Hurts and say, I still think he has a future in this league, and then acknowledge how bad he was today against a pretty damn good opponent. Gunner, you referenced all the people that came back for this game. You referenced Todd Bowles being a great defensive coordinator, how he'll most likely be a head coach next year. I'm shocked he got passed over last year. And then this year, I'd be dumbfounded, flat out dumbfounded if he didn't get a job as a head coach going into next season. But bottom line is Jalen Hurts failed today. And this was a game that he shouldn't have failed as nearly as bad as he did, unfortunately. So even if you're the biggest Jalen Hurts fan, you have to acknowledge this was a terrible game today, yet by a 23-year-old quarterback that was just completed his first year as a starter in the NFL. The fact that he helped this team get to this point, I think, is what will carry him through next season to see if he can get this team in an even better position to win in the playoffs.
Jalen Hurts definitely deserves a share of the blame, and a lot of people are going to look at him first and foremost for what he didn't do. But this was a total team loss. When you look at how, I look at Jason Kelce, who is one of the best centers in the game today. He got manhandled by Vita Vea. And there's nothing wrong with it. Vita Vea. That's close enough. I got you. Whatever that dude's name is. But you look at that guy has manhandled a lot of centers in the National Football League. Okay? So, it starts there. The way Tampa Bay was able to collapse their pocket. Did Jalen miss targets? Absolutely. The offensive line as a whole couldn't establish a running game. That was their bread and butter to get this far. The defense couldn't make the necessary stops when they had to early on in the game to keep it a more manageable game. And even though it was 17-0 at halftime, it was still manageable. But the defense didn't get off the field when it had to at times, okay? I mean, it was a total collapse. The punter, shanking punts. Everybody raise your hands in this regard. The coaching staff got out-coached, And I know we always talk about quarterbacks get too many accolades when you win, and they get too much of the blame when you lose. That's going to be Jalen Hurts' case. He definitely deserves his share of the blame. But, man, when you talk about when you use the word collapse, this was a collapse by the entire team, coaching staff on down to the last man on the roster. No question about it.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly how it felt watching this game unfold. And I don't know if there was a specific play that jumped out to you guys. I go back to, like I mentioned earlier, the read option play on the 3rd and 2, where they just had that perfectly covered. But as this game went on, especially in the late goings of the second quarter, and you're thinking to yourself, Devontae Smith is active tonight, right? Today, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's on the field. And as many times as you saw 8 guys in the box for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers,
absolutely,
you're thinking, okay, so one of these is going to go to Devontae Smith. If they're telling you as an offense, yeah, go ahead and beat us with Jalen Hurts. Let's see what you got, all right? We're not worried about the run game. We know we can stop that. Let's see what your quarterback's got. Let's see if he can beat us with his arm today. That's right. Tampa Bay's mentality going into the game, which was obvious with the way the game played out. But not one time when you were watching or looking at 8 men in the box, you thought, all right, let's get Devontae Smith the ball. That took the 3-minute mark of the second quarter to try to get him a football, to try to get him a play. The one was actually negated simply because there was a penalty on that same play. So he ended up not even getting a target at his first actual target of the game. But as that whole game plan was playing out, you didn't think to yourself once, let me make sure I get the ball to Devontae Smith. If they're going to take away the run the way they're taking away the run, you don't go to your best wide receiver at any point.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's my point. They didn't counter what Tampa was throwing at them. You stack the box against the likes of a Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers. Watch what'll happen. Mm-hmm. They'll torture. And I'm not about to put Jalen Hurts in the same category as those quarterbacks, but that's part of the learning process from a coach to recognize that and translate it to the quarterback to recognize that as well. You're going to stack the box against me? Okay. All right. Here's what I got for you. They didn't counter quick enough to keep the momentum in their favor. They kept trying to run it, and it wasn't working. And all of a sudden, lo and behold, you look up, you're down 2 scores. Now, when you're down 2 scores, even though it's still in the first half, it brings you out of your game because you're trying to play catch up to get some momentum back in your favor, and they just couldn't do it at that point.
Yeah, but if you go ahead. You just bring up a good point. And, I'm not going to say this as a defense of our performance today, but almost more of an example of how it really was a whole team effort, but in terms of losing, because the Devontae catch, once he finally was a target at the end of the first half, then that's brought back by a penalty. And then, Dallas Goedert had a 30-yard catch and run.
Yep.
That was brought back because of a penalty. I think had we not killed ourselves with those, and some of them were on guys like Jason Kelce, it's not the usual suspects. We could be having a very different conversation right now. So I do think, as much as we want to pin the blame on Sirianni, on Hurts, on specific people, then you also have to consider that these mistakes and also just bad luck were a factor in the loss as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, Jason Kelce has been called for maybe one holding penalty the entire season.
Right.
Yeah.
When you look at who that man's going against, you got a Brahma Bulldog, that dude. I mean, what are you going to do? What do you do with him? I mean, there were times they show isolation. As soon as Kelce snapped the ball, he's on one leg this way. He's on one leg this way. That man is like a man and a half that he's going across. And that's one of the strengths of Tampa Bay's defense. They are stout in the middle of that defense, and they force you to do some certain things that you don't want to do. If you're an inside running team, you're not going to have a lot of success running the ball inside against Tampa Bay's defense. If you want to be an outside running team, Tampa Bay has one of the fastest defensive fronts in the NFL, sideline to sideline. So you got to pick and choose your poison against this team. And, a lot of times it doesn't work. Now, we have seen teams that have been able to find a way to beat Tampa, but you have to pick and choose your poison against this team. They are so well coached. They are so disciplined in so many areas. Now, they are suspect in the pass game in the back end, and the Eagles had their chances. They didn't take care of business. And when they did, penalties negated it. And so that's why I said a few moments ago, Jalen Hurts will get a lot of credit for what did not happen, but this was a total team collapse. Mental mistakes, physical mistakes, and being outcoached.
You know what? Except Ryan Kerrigan. Man, he was great today. That Ryan Kerrigan guy.
He was the one guy I thought was going to show up.
Kerrigan waited until the playoffs to decide to show up to the Philadelphia Eagles, and I love that for him.
I was thinking, Gunnar, we'll get into this a little bit later, but in all seriousness, with Josh Sweat not playing DN, was Ryan Kerrigan elevated to that spot today? Did he get to just rush the quarterback as many times? That's what it looked like. Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So why didn't the Eagles use Ryan Kerrigan a little bit more like that throughout the season?
And then once Tampa Bay's tackle Tristan Wirfs went out, that's all of a sudden when Kerrigan decided to bull rush the backup guy who was playing injured as well. Mm-hmm. So Kerrigan did what he had to do. I'm looking at his stats for the entire season. He had 3 tackles in 16 games this year. 3 tackles.
What did he have today? What did he end up with today?
He had 2 quarterback sacks. I know that. So he almost had as many QB sacks today as he had tackles the entire regular season.
That's
so he did show up. He did show up and play a decent game today. But, he's another guy I don't expect to be back again in 2022.
Mm-hmm. Go figure. All right. We're going to be back in a second with some more of our observations from this game. Eagles again lose 31-15. Their season is over. Tampa Bay Buccaneers survive and advance. We do want to tell you how great the people of Stateside Vodka are. Don't forget about Stateside Vodka. Try the new Surfside Tea by Stateside Vodka. See the scroll below and use the code JAKIB for 15% off the very popular Stateside Vodka soda as well. Go to statesidevodka.com. That's statesidevodka.com. More live post-game show when we return.